usually 2 minutes behind, which
which is weird. Honestly, I should probably just change the latency. All right, well, welcome to everybody. It is episode 3.5 of the BCS podcast. Me and Spects are here for NFL stuff this week. We have London games this weekend. That's exciting.
We do.
I love the London games because then I get more football during the day.
Yeah, I mean, you get that means we get what, 4 football games on Sunday, huh? For when it is?
Pretty much. Yeah. Which is always fun. I love the weird stuff they do for the London games. Like, didn't last year they had one, I think, on Nickelodeon or something?
That was kind of cool. We have live breaking news that literally broke a minute ago.
Wait, what?
Yeah, there's live breaking news on the baseball front from one Jeffrey Passan.
Oh, what's Jeff Passan got to say?
The Reds are hiring Terry Francona as their manager. Sources tell ESPN he will come out of retirement 1 year after stepping away from Cleveland and take over a young, talented Reds team. Mark Feinstein was first on the news.
Interesting. Is that considered a good hire then? Because I'm not a super baseball guy. I know Terry Francona is from the Red Sox, but
Terry's good. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if it's quote unquote a good move.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's one of those guys where I think last year with Cleveland, it kind of seemed like the game might have passed him by a little bit, but I also don't know if that was just because of where they were as a team compared to this year. So I'm not quite sure. But also too, like I think sometimes and this is with any sport, I think coaches or not coaches necessarily. I think ownership has a tendency to sometimes when they don't have a candidate necessarily or someone they like, they have a tendency to sort of go with a name sometimes. And this might be one of those situations where it's like, oh, he's here for 2-3 years and we hire somebody else.
Right.
Just not so much like a bridge, but like somebody who can kind of get them to that next step and then
you could find someone to take them to that last step. I mean,
yeah, which is like, are they going to be like, could they be a playoff team next year under Francona? Yeah, I could see it. Will they go very far? Probably not, but it's like that initial, like, hey, you're going to be, you'll be
playoff bump, right?
You'll be there. So yeah. I think that might be,
which I mean,
part of it.
We see that in all the other sports, right? Like the Broncos did this, right? They had John Fox for a couple years. They made it to the Super Bowl, got killed, and then they're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get Gary Kubiak, and then we finally won. So this is, I guess that makes sense if you're a young team to get kind of one of those guys for a couple years to tide you over until you're really ready to compete.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like it's one of those ones where it's like he's like I said, I think. The name I thought they'd hire was Skip Schumacher was like the one I was like, I thought they would go to Skip because he played there. It made sense, but it's like, okay, he went that direction. That's not. I don't hate the move. I think it's interesting, but we'll see what happens. A lot of these guys too, it's like they don't necessarily know what to do outside of coaching.
Right, like a lot of them try to do the TV thing, and then about half of them end up getting called back to coaching anyway because they just are psychos like that.
It's not even so much like they're like psychos. Like
a lot of them are psychos.
It's a lot of it. It's sort of like I consider it like the John Gruden effect, where it's like all they know is football.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like
all they know is like their sport.
Yeah, so they have a tough time adjusting to something that isn't like on the field, hands on their sport. Whereas like broadcasting, I mean, that's got to be, for those types of guys, got to be so freaking boring. Like sitting and in meetings that aren't necessarily like football related, but more broadcast related and stuff like that. They got to drive them crazy.
And especially when it's like, because I don't necessarily want to like bring it back to Gruden, but I think where it's like Gruden was still like watching film because he had like the Gruden camp and stuff where it was like he was still actively trying to get like with quarterbacks and stuff being like
they found a way to make him a coach without him being a coach.
Yeah, he was a coach. Like, yeah, he still had that like coaching mindset of like, oh, he's still. I mean, granted, I think a lot of these guys still watch game film sort of anyway to begin with.
Oh yeah, 100%.
but I don't like. I sort of laugh. I think we can talk about this briefly. I think Kurt Warner sort of making fun of me, like, wait, how do these guys have the time to watch this sort of thing?
Yeah.
During the week.
Wait, Kurt. Like, I don't. Yeah, Kurt Warner. Wait, was he? I missed that. What did he say?
Kurt Warner kind of threw shade, saying there's guys like Stephen A. Smith probably don't watch as much film as they claim.
Oh, I guarantee you, Stephen A. Smith doesn't watch any film. There's no way he does. At least him, specifically just because he is so freaking busy all the time.
or if they kind of do. I'm wondering too if they. I wonder too, because I never bothered asking. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they get condensed versions with sort of notes underneath the thing, so they kind of know what they're seeing from somebody else.
Oh yeah, no, and head coaches have this too, but you have the video guys, video coordinators like in the NBA, and they're the ones that cut up all the film for all the important stuff. So I would guarantee you, ESPN, Fox, all these other sports broadcasting media companies have a bunch of those guys that.
They have a bunch of those guys,
but just break stuff out and.
But I'm sure like the guys like Tom Brady are like, no, I want the whole thing, so I want to be able to control it. And look at it.
So, yeah, I mean, well, good for the Reds. I like the Reds.
Yeah, it's not a bad. Like I said, it's not a bad move. I think it's just a move.
It's a move. It's like we said. All right, you want to talk NFL?
Yeah. Do you want to talk with the interesting thing of? The interesting predicament.
The Devante Adams predicament.
You know what? This is one I saw coming.
Is he hurt? His hamstring is all of a sudden acting up.
Hence the phantom. I want to go back, actually, if I may, to win the Niners, or not the Niners, when the Raiders got blown out when they got blown out a couple weeks ago.
Oh yeah, they got killed by the Panthers. Yes,
and how Antonio Pierce made the comment that some people made "quote unquote" business decisions.
Yes,
and that kind of started the speculation that that's a shot at Devante.
He was one of them. Yeah,
which I'm sure it's true. Like he's like, okay, we're not gonna do this. I'm sure I'm more than willing to say that was probably part of it.
I think Devante Adams, as far as receivers go, is definitely very particular about who his quarterback is.
Which I don't blame.
Which I don't blame him, because obviously receivers are very reliant on their quarterback to make themselves a living, right? But I think that probably was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Because he goes to the Raiders because Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay and says, "Hey, I want to play with Derek Carr, who I played with in college." Then the Raiders get rid of Derek Carr, and now he's mad. And now you have that game a couple weeks ago where he essentially gets called out. I mean, this was definitely one of those things you kind of see coming, and even especially because he's an aging receiver on a crappy team, who probably wants to win more, right? So,
and according to this is from earlier today. Apparently, according to Ian Rappaport, Devante hopes to be traded to the Jets.
Be
back with Rodgers, even though it's sort of kind of what I tweeted out saying like, oh, I think this is like you're outside of KC because I don't think the Raiders will trade in division.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Like he sort of we're kind of on the same page. It's like the Saints, Steelers, Ravens, Bills. He says Cowboys, Niners could do it. I think kind of what I tweeted out where it was like, who did I say? I don't remember what I said. But it was like I said maybe I think the Bills would be the most interesting.
I agree. I think that would be the most interesting. And if he wanted to win this year, that's definitely the move, right? If he could choose a team and he wants to actually win a Super Bowl, I mean, that's the one. Like the Jets, the Aaron Rodgers thing, obviously, the Saints, the Derek Carr thing again. And then
I said, so my teams were, I did say the Jets. I said the Colts, that they're contending, the Rams, and maybe the Bills make sense.
Yeah, the Rams would make a lot of sense, and I would really like that. I like, to me, that's like a dark horse candidate, just because they have all these injuries. They have a veteran QB that I think would make Devante happy, because it's obviously needs a quarterback he's familiar with, and Stafford's awesome. So yeah, I agree. I think to me the Rams make the most sense in the Bills, but I have a feeling he ends up with the Jets or the Saints, just because of the history between him and the QBs. And you're right, the Chiefs are out. There's no way they trade within division unless the Raiders really think they're gonna suck for the next couple years, and maybe you're able to steal I don't know, like a couple firsts, like a couple late firsts from them.
From
potentially.
From what the Raiders, at least every report is they're saying they're looking for at least a second round pick as compensation.
Yeah.
So
which if
that's the case,
yeah.
Which if that's the case, and how easy it is to sort of get second round picks, it's not. I don't think that's a big commodity for anyone. Like I would trade a second and a third, or second and a fourth in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and especially if you're one of these really good teams, like that second rounder is going to be pick 50, 60, something in that range, right? So like, it's not like we're talking about pick 32 or 33.
No,
or whatever,
talking.
Right?
You're probably talking
late second round.
Like I said, especially with how these picks are the second round pick, especially like I think next year, similar to this year, where it's like I don't think anyone's going to be is going to be like, oh, I really want 32 for that guy that fell. I don't think you're going to see that again.
Yeah.
I don't think you're having an Xavier Worthy situation again, but we'll see.
I mean,
but
like I say that every year.
I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily see it happening, especially if you're like, oh, our second round pick was Devante Adams, essentially.
Yeah.
I think you'll be okay with that decision.
At least for the next 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah, because it's sort of like when the Colts traded a first round pick to get DeForest Buckner. And it's like, our first round pick is DeForest Buckner. Like, I think we can live with that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Though I will say, I mean, Devante Adams, last year was not up to kind of his, usual self.
Look who
right?
It's like, look who he had back there. He went from Jimmy Garoppolo to
you're right. It was Jimmy Garoppolo, and then I don't remember who the other guy was.
It was an 0-1.
His name is escaping me. I think he's the backup this year. You're right. The quarterback play was bad.
Quarterback. So the quarterback play is bad. So it's like, if he goes, like if he were to go to like every team we kind of said, or even like they're saying where it's like,
Aiden O'Connell, that was his name.
Aiden O'Connell, the Saints with Carr. Steelers, I'm a little shaky on, because I don't think the quarterback play there is that great either.
No,
the Ravens would be great. The Bills would be great. Dallas would be great. The Niners, but I don't think the Niners necessarily want another wide receiver.
The Niners don't need it, right?
No,
I think the receiver, they're fine.
Yeah, even at the running back, I think the Niners are more okay than I think people want to admit.
Yeah, well, that's all Kyle Shanahan, right? You give him any running back, he'll figure it out. That's just that family legacy, basically.
That's just the Shanahan.
That's just the Shanahan way. He did with the Broncos for 20 years. Throw any running back there, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's next man up.
Tatum Bell, Mike Anderson, doesn't matter.
Unlike how it is in Miami right now.
Yeah, Miami is in a tough spot. They are having the season from hell of all the teams.
Well, doesn't help too.
What's that?
I was to say, I was listening to Diana Rossini, not her podcast, but she was on a podcast I was listening to. And one thing that she was making the comment on was like, there's really not an island of great backup quarterbacks.
True. So you're not really winning with them. No.
Yeah, it's like, as she sort of put it, it's like, you're sort of like, honestly, what I think, I think the best situation for teams now, at least in terms of backup quarterbacks, is have a quarterback you drafted suck, and you keep him and make him your backup instead of like trying to find a random backup.
Yeah, I mean, then at least it's coming from in-house, right? You know what you're working with.
Look at the Jets. Look at the Jets with Aaron Rodgers last year. They luckily still had Zach Wilson.
Yeah, so they had someone in-house, but I bet if you're right, because if someone were to try to get Zach Wilson now, like the Miami Dolphins for Zach Wilson makes total sense. They have to learn his tendencies, and he has to learn a whole new system and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so I guess
I saw that with Huntley on Monday, where it was like it was not going
well. It was tough. Yeah.
And I don't think it's gonna get any better for him. I don't think it's gonna get any better.
Miami is their season's over. I don't have much worry about just saying that now their season's done. We'll be seeing a top 10 pick from the Dolphins, which hooray for Mike McDaniel, right?
He's having a rough go of it.
Yes.
And the funny part is, I know people are probably saying, "Oh, fire McDaniel," and I'm just like,
he's not the problem.
It's like, what are you going to think's going to happen? You replace him with somebody else, and it's magically going to fix itself. It's like, no, it's not a problem. It's
no, the quarterbacks they've had this year are Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley, and Tim Boyle.
Yeah, it's like you don't have anyone.
You don't. Like, they're all borderline roster guys, right? They should pretty much all be on a practice squad, if we're being honest.
Hilariously, the best quarterback he'd probably, if you were smart, and if you just said, fuck it, let's try it, get someone like RG3, who's similar to Tua, who can kind of do what Tua does. Maybe not that same level, but that's the quarterback you need. You don't like Tim Huntley's like a Walmart version of like Lamar Jackson, and it's not really working.
I think a couple years ago I would have agreed. I think RG3's been out of it too long, but yes, you need.
But I'm saying, you get the point, right?
One of those like kind of higher pedigree type of guys. I think that kind of flamed out a bit. Like, honestly, I wonder why, and maybe Carolina.
You need like the IQ. You need like somebody with like that IQ.
Andy Dalton, like Josh McCown for a bunch of years, Ryan Fitzpatrick, like those types of guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it is interesting. Miami didn't go after a better backup this offseason.
I don't think they thought about it.
Yeah, I know. Like hindsight's 2020, but yeah, like looking back.
Because why would you? Because you gotta be like, oh, what? Like no one expects your starting quarterback to dive into someone's calf.
It's true. That's usually not a good move.
Yeah. So, but they're in a terrible.
They're in a really bad spot. Yeah. All right.
But you're going over some. Huh?
Wait, are we going over some games now?
So we can kind of go over last week, I guess, unless there's no other real.
Oh yeah, we should talk about the Broncos and their.
Let's talk about the Broncos
barn burner game. 10-9.
The worst game I have never watched.
It was pouring for the first half. There was a point where the way Bo Nix was throwing the football is he was throwing like a shot put because he could not get any grip on the ball. He had -7 yards at halftime passing. But it's okay.
Good.
He ended with 60 yards passing, lowest passing yards ever for a QB win. I think it's the stat I read.
Yeah, I think I tweeted out something where it was like, this is just Big Ten football.
Yeah, Big Ten football. Let's go. He had his first career.
Oh God, I hate Big Ten football.
First career touchdown pass, Cortland Sutton. So let's go. We finally popped the cherry on that one. And the defense was baller. Aaron Rodgers. In the last couple minutes, didn't look like Aaron Rodgers. Like the rain had kind of subsided a bit, and he looked a little timid. I don't know if that's the right word.
I wonder if a lot of it too, and this is just my thought, is I wonder how much of it was like it's wet, that turf and that ankle, where it's like in the back of your head, he's like
the ankle.
One wrong step and it's
just snapped again. I think that's the biggest part of it. I think it's that mental
just a block in the back of the head where it's like it's wet. I don't have a lot of grip on these cleats because have you ever played on that turf in the rain?
Yes, yeah. It is tough.
It is slick. You can't.
Yes.
You're not. And I think these guys play in the hard plastic or not even the hard if they have the removable stuff. Mm-hmm. Where if you've never played sports. The bottom of your cleats have about maybe half an inch on them normally.
Yep.
And especially like when you're moving, you don't want the longer ones a lot of times. So you don't get a lot of grip to begin with. And you're you don't catch, like you're not catching it a lot of times. So like trying to dive or move, it's impossible.
Yeah. No, that game was ugly, but let's go. We came out with a W going to New York. So I'm happy. I'll take it. I'll take any wins I can take, you know.
You're 2-2.
2-2. Let's go.
Let me look back. Was there anything crazy last week? The Tennessee Dolphin game we talked about was a shitstorm. Lions Seahawks was a dream for me.
The Lions Seahawks game was a dream.
Yeah,
let's go Lions.
Walker, Gibbs and Walker, stellar.
Nice. Yep.
Bills Ravens was a letdown. That was a
letdown. Ravens killed them.
That was kind of the whole thing. Is I feel like that was kind of a course correction because you knew it was just going to happen.
Well, Derrick Henry became King Henry again. Had
Yeah,
like a
when Derrick Henry's
95-yard touchdown run or something to start the game.
When Derrick Henry's running like a Conca truck again,
that
you're in trouble.
Insane.
The Commanders apparently, I think, dare I say, are for real.
They found the quarterback, man. This is on our games this week. This is the number one I had was Jaden Daniels, man.
So I made a theory. I told my buddy this. He's a Bears fan, and I made this theory. I said I think Cliff Kingsbury will be coaching the Bears next year. Until I heard something again on that same interview with Diana Rossini.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he being Cliff Kingsbury is just enjoying calling plays. He said he really just likes calling the plays and not having to worry about anything else. So I'm wondering if he's sort of like, I don't necessarily know if I want to be a head coach again in the NFL.
And that makes sense, right? Because when you're a head coach, you have so much other crap you got to worry about, on top of calling plays. Whereas what you really love doing is just calling plays, that makes perfect sense, especially because he's really good at it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if would he even want a head coach again, or if he would he kind of be one? Because I know there are some coaches where it's like I kind of want to be hands off, let my coordinators handle everything, and I just want to call. Kind of just do my thing, which is like, hey, I'm really good at calling the offensive plays. Like, I'll just work with the OC and all that, and just sort of oversee everything, which I guess could be the case. But if he's saying that and he's like, no, I kind of just like doing this, I'm like, then maybe he won't.
Yeah, I mean, some people like being in the weeds, hands-on type of thing. Other people's kind of fit more in that managerial style. So if he's in the weeds, hands-on guy. If he sort of found it,
if he found his spot and he's like, I kind of just like reading offenses and doing that. Hey man, by all means do that. Be the best goddamn coordinator you can.
Hey, I don't blame him. Less pressure, still giant paycheck. Probably a bit more fun, right?
And if the right situation comes around, like I said, I do think the Bears will want to interview him next year because he works with Caleb.
Yeah,
and if he sort of comes in and says, hey, here's what I would do. And if they say, hey, you just want to handle the offense. You can kind of be an OC. You can have more of an OC style for head coach. We'll give you the best coordinator. I think a lot of it, I don't even go back to basketball, but I know basketball does this a lot of times, where it's almost like, I think when the Lakers hired, what's his name? Frank Vogel.
Yep.
Where it was like they got him, he had 2 former NBA coaches as his assistants. And Jason Kidd. I don't remember who the other one was.
I don't remember who it was either, but
they had basically
3 head coaches.
They basically had 3 head coaches where it was like, okay, Frank Vogel's the defensive guy. Okay, he's just handling the defense. Kidd's handling most of the offense, and then somebody else is sort of facilitating between the two.
Right.
Why don't you do that at the NFL level? If Cliff wants to be head coach again, it's like, hey, I just want to manage the offense and kind of not be everywhere all at once. My focus is offense. Hey, if that's what you want to do, figure it out. Let it go. Make it work. But if he does sort of want to just be there, hey, let him be there.
Yep. Agreed.
But I think Eberflus is done.
Yeah, he's done.
He's going to be fired. He's done at the end of the year.
No
that
way.
Offense is so anemic.
It is. And it's sad because they have...
It's not even Caleb's fault. They have no line. And Caleb can't do anything.
No. And they have talent on the skill position side, too. They should be better than they are. Given their roster. With DJ Moore and... the running backs and stuff. So
yeah.
But
so jumping ahead, I guess. Is there anything else from last week?
The other one I want to mention is Joe Flacco returns. He will never die. He's every year he comes back and wins games.
Funny to me. There's something funny to me with Anthony Richardson, and I sort of hope having Flacco maybe if Flacco starts on Sunday, it'll give him this perspective. Is I think he needs to take a step back.
He does,
and I don't mean I don't mean that in a negative, oh, he's trash. I mean, no, you are really good.
The talent is there,
but it's you need to just it's one of those bits where I sort of think of you need to just sit back and watch somebody do it, and just sort of learn how to and almost learn how to progress a little bit better. Where it's you sort of, I guess it's sort of the old school way where it's sit back.
Aaron Rodgers did Pat Mahomes did.
It's like, don't look at it like in a way of like you're not good. It's like, no, we think you have all the talent in the world, but you need to just like.
It's the mental part of the game is the hardest part, you know, and he isn't there yet.
And there's nothing. It's like there's nothing wrong with that. I much rather be in the situation where it's like, okay, something's there. We just have to like get him to understand. Like, no, you have the talent, you have it. You just need to understand when to do things, and that's only going to come with time.
Exactly. I will mention he's still only 22. He doesn't turn 23 until May. Like, he is super young. So, yeah, and I think he needs to be sitting back, but also needs to not be injured, right? Because last year he sat, but he was injured, so there wasn't really much practice or reps he could do with that. Whereas if you kind of take him, sit him back for, even if it's just for like a handful of games, like, that may help his progression more than just getting killed on a weekly basis.
Yeah, like, just let him watch. Yeah. Let him watch and sort of just have Flacco be like, hey, you see here, we're not trying to do too much. Like, it's the whole idea of, I think something that's really hard for young quarterbacks is sort of understanding and taking what the defense is going to give you. Because in college, that's have tough. That. In college, a lot of times, I feel like, and you're sort of seeing with Caleb, is like that ability to be like, when you're in college, you're not afraid to make a mistake per se.
Right.
You're not afraid to like throw it. Where it's like in the NFL, you kind of can't. You have to fight that instinct to throw it. Like, you have to be willing to be like, okay, I'm just going to take 3 yards, but we're just going to, like, it's forward progression.
And part of that is these guys are so used to being on a team where their team out athletes the other, right? Like, Caleb Williams played for USC. They have the best receivers in the country a lot of the time. Like, half of their games are against lesser competition. He can kind of just do whatever, and it'll work out.
I remember somebody making the comment where it was like, imagine playing in the SEC every week, but everyone's an All-American. And that's how that's
the NFL. 100%.
It's you're playing the SEC and everyone's an All-American.
It's the best of the best of the best, like, week in and week out. Yeah. There are no gimme games. There's a reason why the Patriots.
Like the O-line.
Yeah, like, so.
Despite their O-line, who just doesn't care.
Yeah. So yeah, Joe Flacco, he's back.
All right, anywho, let's jump ahead, I guess, to this
some
week.
Games this week, yeah.
So I guess I can start.
Yeah, you start.
I'm going to talk about the Colts-Jaguars game, and not from the perspective of a Colts fan, because this game is legitimately fascinating for 2 reasons, because something's going to break here. One, the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in like a goddamn decade.
Is that true?
That is true.
I didn't realize it's been that long.
They have not won in Jacksonville in years. I think they're 0 for the last like 6 or 7.
They last won in 2014.
So it's been a decade.
It's been a decade. All right, continue.
So something's gonna break. It's either gonna be 0-10, and the Jacksonville Jaguars go 5, or it's gonna be 0-10, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are 1-4. I think the Jaguars are that lost to where they're gonna be 0-5.
Yeah, they are terrible.
They are not performing at all. Nope. I don't know what happened. I mean, I have never seen a fall from grace like this. Like, Trevor Lawrence is 0-7 or 0, like, he's 0-9, I think, now to this point.
Jeez. And not only that, but their coach is talking about having lost the locker room, getting questions like that. That's never a good sign. He might be the first one fired, honestly.
The whole thing is, I don't think Doug Peterson's the problem.
No, I don't think he is either. But
I think the problem
there's always a scapegoat.
Lawrence has the yips for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell happened, but he is
even
not what he was.
If that's the case, like, the scapegoat isn't going to be Lawrence. Like, he's a number 1 overall pick.
No, and they paid him
5 years ago. They paid him.
Yeah,
he's stuck there.
They paid him. I don't think his hands. I feel bad for Tony Khan.
Yeah.
In this situation, because it's like I think Tony Khan knows what the problem is, and it ain't Doug Peterson. But it's like I have to. It's like you have to. You have to do one of 2 things: either just let it ride out and just be like, hey, we're gonna suck this year, and we'll just deal with it in the offseason, or B, you side with your quarterback, like he's probably going to have to, and you fire Doug Peterson, even though Doug Peterson's not the issue.
I mean, yeah, Doug Peterson's a good coach, so, you don't all of a sudden become a bad coach, but sometimes quarterbacks all of a sudden start sucking. So, yeah, that is an interesting one because the Jaguars' season's pretty much on the line. And is Richardson playing? I think he's questionable.
I assume, I think he's questionable.
Is he? Okay. I wasn't sure. Like, it'll be interesting to see if either, like, if he plays, if he's able to kind of, actually
It's a
play
hip
well.
pointer. I've had that injury.
Do you think you just hold him out, even if he's like ready to play? Like, do you think you probably just hold him out, right? Because they seemed to just put him out there last week, like after he got hurt, and he seemed to get more hurt.
I'd probably just leave him out.
Yeah,
like don't force it. Because
Joe Flacco's fine.
I've had that injury. You're better off sort of just resting it. Like, it's not a fun injury. Like the hip pointer, hip flexor thing. It's not a fun injury. Like, you're better off letting it rest.
Yeah, that sounds like it sucks. When is
this? You'll just be sore because like it can kind of go like. For me, it was like the hip into the groin, so it's like that whole area is sore, and it's like, yeah, you don't want to mess with that because like, especially like if you have to rotate like he does, like yeah, don't bother. Like it's like I said, they're 0-4. Like you're not. You sort of like yeah.
Oh, their bye week is until late in the season. Okay.
Yeah, they're late. Yeah, their bye week.
I was curious. I'm like, it would make sense definitely to sit him if his bye week is in the next week or two. But
they don't have it till like 14.
Yeah, it's week 14.
But looking at the whole thing is like looking at the South. I'm willing to bet you're still like probably the second best team in that division by far. So it's not like
the Jaguars suck and the Titans suck. So
they're not in the worst position in the world because it's like I think
they just need to hang on for a couple weeks. Essentially, is all they have to do.
If you can go like if you're sort of like in the 10-7. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to get in as a wild card, and I think that's sort of ish where they'll be.
Yeah,
it's like don't really worry about it because you're in a weak division anyway. So it's just like let the Texans sort of do whatever they need to do because I think the Texans are 3. Yeah, Texans are 3-1. Like let them kind of.
They're going to win the division. Just aim for one of those wild card spots.
They're going to win the division.
Yeah.
Just sort of like keep your head down and just sort of be like, okay, we only have to be better. It was sort of this quandary that I was saying like, oh, like before the season, I said, I think the Colts are a wild card team. Yeah. I was like, oh, you think they're better than like all these teams? And I'm like, I think they're better than a lot of teams. The only team I think they're worse than that are in the second place now. Probably just the Ravens in the AFC, to be honest with you. There's not a whole lot of teams in the AFC where I'm like, yeah, there they are.
And the thing is, you got to think the strength of schedule too. Like the Colts essentially get 4 free wins. The Titans and the Jags, they should win those games. And then at that point, you just need to find 6 more somewhere else, which, you're going to be playing. It looks like you play the Patriots, you play the Giants, the Jets, who knows? You already beat the Bears.
It's like
there's enough cupcake teams there.
Yeah, it's like you beat, and the whole thing is too, like looking at it from 10,000 feet. It's like you played the Texans stuff. You played the Packers stuff. You beat the Bears. You beat the Steelers. You might have been chasing Jaguars. You should win. Titans. You should win. Dolphins. You should win.
Yeah.
So realistically, you should be at 4 and you should be at what
5-2.
That's not 5-2.
Into that Texans game. I think
go in the Texans game, and it's like, hey, you play them tough again. You never know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Vikings again, if you play them tough, you never know what's going to happen. Bills, sort of the same thing. You never know what's going to happen. So I mean, like even in this tough scenario, if you come out and you only beat the Vikings, like they have some tougher, like you have some tougher teams, but like in terms of teams that are tough, it's like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe, and they're all in a row. Like depending on how you view the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think the Jets are very good. But yeah, you're right. There are kind of 4 out of 5 games that are tough, and then you've got a pretty easy schedule.
So if you're looking at that and you're saying like, oh, they're going to lose these 4 games in a row. Okay, there's 6. Like if they lose all their tough games, which is Texans, Vikings, Bills, Jets, Lions.
Yep.
That's 6 losses. And then if you tell me, oh, they have to win out to get in, I think they honestly might win out and get in.
Patriots, Broncos, Titans, Giants, Jaguars. That's not a hard.
So it's just like, okay, just weather the storm, and it's like you'll more than likely, if I'm a betting man, they'll probably ink out one win because it's like,
and they'll be one of those like cupcake games that they'll get surprised and lose. It always happens, right? Whether it's
there's always
one 3
I assume there's a trap game in there somewhere.
Hey, you got to come to Denver in December. Because
the interesting thing here is worth noting: the Bills, the the Bills and Lions are in Indy, so it's like, hey, it gets loud there, and anything can happen.
It's true. It's true.
The same.
All right.
Your game.
My game. We got we're playing the Raiders in this in Denver.
Oh,
it is. It's at Mile High. So, as we've already talked about, the Raiders have quit, or at least they have, according to their head coach. So I like
they
made business decisions. Sorry, I used the Q word. That's not a good word to use. But I mean, the Broncos defense is crazy legit. I think we're like 4th in the NFL in overall defense, like yards given up per game. Bo Nix, while he has definitely struggled, it has looked way better the last 2 weeks. Like, he's making better decisions than he was the first 2 weeks. And with this being in Denver, I really like the Broncos to win this one just because I don't think the Raiders are any good. And that Broncos defense is scary good. Like,
I think the Raiders legitimately need like an actual quarterback, and I think they're gonna get one. I think they're probably gonna. I think they have eyes on Ewers.
I mean, regardless. Yeah, they need somebody, right? Because Gardner Minshew's an okay, like, get you through a year or get you through 6 games when you need it, but that's not who I want as my starter long term. And and honestly, they're probably kind of heading that way. Like, inside, they're probably like, hey, it's not so bad if we lose out, right? Because then you end up with a Quinn Ewers or Shedeur Sanders or whoever, one of those guys.
Well, hilariously, because I just happened to sort of look. So I'm like, oh, what's the, these way too early mock drafts sort of are going at here.
Mm-hmm.
They have 2 Colorado guys going 1-2.
Travis Hunter going 1-2.
Travis Hunter going to New England and Shedeur going to New York.
Oh God, that made me so sad if Travis Hunter went to New England. Side note, today he said he wanted to be a Bronco long term, so we're praying that happens.
Like I'm saying, like, honestly, I think him going to the Broncos would be a great thing. And then Carson, so like the way it's sort of looking now is like Travis Hunter's number 1. Then there's like this guy said Shedeur's going to New York, Carson Beck going to Carolina, Ewers going to Tennessee, and then the Broncos at this point, who have the 5th pick, would get a defensive end.
I mean, I don't hate that. Like, I don't mind defensive ends, corners, because we can always use those. But yeah, man, Travis.
So
Hunter,
it's sort
man.
of
that's
it's sort of odd where it's like I said, it's kind of in the odd scenario where it's like, hey, do you sort of like, I don't want to say throw, but you sort of like, is the internal discussion sort of like, hey, do we kind of like
tank it a bit?
Not necessarily tank it, but it's like,
but
it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, are they really putting their best foot forward? Because it's like, if you could get Travis Hunter, and it's sort of like he kind of wants to be in Denver.
Yeah, I mean, at least from the Broncos' perspective, one, you can always trade up, right? So there's always that option that, if the Broncos do end up with number 5, I mean, I would hope so.
No, I meant like, does New England want him?
Oh yeah, they need him. Like, they have no. I don't know if I could even name a receiver on their roster.
Well, I mean, okay, better question. Is it one of those things where it's like, do we really want to take this guy number 1? Do you want to take a wide receiver number 1 or a quarterback number 1? I don't mean the sense of like he's not worth it.
Okay.
I'm like, do you want that stigma?
So here's the thing. Normally, I'd agree if it was a receiver or a corner. I think the difference here is he plays both. That theoretically, and you can sell your fans on this, sell the owner, you are getting 2 number 1 overall picks for the price of 1, essentially. Because as receiver or corner, right? He'd be the top prospect at each of those positions. So I think those combined makes it so spending a number 1 overall pick on him versus like number 5 or 6 is much more palatable, right?
I guess. Yeah, I guess so. But again, it comes down to how many of those old school guys are like, I don't want to necessarily waste it because I'd rather use it for a position that.
And that's the thing is you will have those old crotchety guys that
pushback.
Yeah, it'll happen for sure.
Where it's one of those bits where I sort of laugh because I think Sean Payton's foaming at the mouth to get him.
Oh my God, I don't blame him. I would be too. He's
and
so
I'm
good.
not even because he's right there, and 2, like I think Sean Payton loves somebody would love somebody like that because he loved Taysom Hill, and Taysom Hill was the exact same way.
Right, he can play basically any position on a football field. Throw him in the backfield. Who cares? Hand him the ball off. End around.
And the whole thing is that, and the funny thing is that's what Sean Payton's offense thrives in, is these utility Swiss Army knife guys where it's like, hey, if they really need him, if they need him to be a running back, guess what? He'll be your running back. Yeah. He'll be your slot receiver. He'll be your deep threat.
He'll like Percy Harvin.
It's like
I
Percy
think
Harvin
that's the
kind of
like
that's this. He needs like that Swiss Army knife because that's what Alvin Kamara was.
Yep,
or is.
Agreed. Yeah, can kind of do.
I digress.
Yeah, but let's go Broncos. We're gonna kill the Raiders. Raiders suck. All right, what's your next game?
I don't necessarily think this is interesting, but it's the game. It's the quote unquote the big game, and it's the Rams at the Packers.
I think that's an interesting one because of Jordan Love coming back from injury.
I think what's funny. I think the Rams are better than their record.
Oh, they 100% are. They've gotten screwed by injuries big time. And they've also had some kind of bad losses.
So I kind of wonder, and it's one of those bits where it's like, there's nothing you can really do, but it's just like, it's one of those bits where it's like, okay, just try to survive, I guess.
Yeah, they're in their survival mode, especially with their top two receivers out. That really hampers their offense.
But oddly, I think similar to the Colts, it's like you sort of look at the division. Seattle, I think Seattle's gonna start sort of.
I don't know if Seattle's good or not. I'm gonna be real.
I think Seattle's gonna slide a little bit.
Thing is, their division's a lot harder than the Colts is. Like Arizona isn't
well,
bad.
Here's my question: is like if they win, so let's say they beat the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
They win. They're now 2-3.
Yep.
Their next game,
they have a bye and then Vegas. Yeah.
They have a bye and then Vegas. So it's like, and then I think Nakua is coming back. Would come back that week. So it's like, okay, Puka's back. So you got one weapon back.
Right.
So it's like you kind of right the ship at that point.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of in the boat where they're just trying to get to the bye week, like
because you play Vegas the next week, and then the following week you play
Minnesota, which
so it's like
I'm kind of skeptical on Minnesota's good. They're kind of like Seattle, where their record says they're good. Sam Darnold's been playing really well, but we also have a lot of years of Sam Darnold not being good. So
I don't know. I think it's just a matter of like, if you can weather the storm and kind of just like right yourself and beat 500 going into that game, I think you kind of like your chances.
Yeah, especially with the injuries, reserves coming back.
Because it's like the whole thing is it's sort of like all you really have to do is walk yourself when. It's basically like if you hit 8 losses, you're probably in a little bit of a pickle. But it's like I don't see this team losing. I don't think this team is necessarily going to lose that many games. I think they'll right the ship at a certain point. It's just a matter of can they weather it a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's a head coach quarterback to trust to right the ship at some point, it's Stafford and McVay, right? They're two of the better quarterback head coach combos in the NFL. So yeah, I like the Rams.
So it's like I think they'll.
With that said, I think the Packers win.
I think it'll be close. I don't know.
It'll be a close game for sure, but I think the Packers edge them out.
Right? If you were to tell me like, oh, it's close going to the final minute, and Jordan Love kind of does something like kind of overexerts himself, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, but yeah, I just look. Yeah, like the Packers lost to the Eagles, but it was close. Lost to the Vikings, it was close, and then beat the Colts and blew out the Titans. So they're a solid wild card. Potentially division winner type of team, like lower end division winner team. So
all right, so I guess your last game here, since we sort of picked our games, is interesting.
Yeah, my last game is Cleveland and Washington. Not because of the actual teams, because one, Cleveland sucks. But Jaden Daniels is insane. Like I think Washington finally found their quarterback after 30 years. You had RG3 and Kirk Cousins for a couple years where it looked like he was good, and then it just kind of didn't happen. But he's a rookie and he's leading the league in completion percentage. You know how crazy that is at 82%. The second highest completion percentage is Geno Smith at 72%. So he is number one by 10 percentage points. He's so good, and it's been funny to watch the Washington fans on my like Twitter timeline like finally have hope again.
Like, oh my god, we have a quarterback.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, what is this like? Because they were trending in the same direction the Browns have for years and the Broncos have been, where every year it's a new quarterback and it just never works out. So I'm happy for them, but yeah, Washington is, at least their offense is pretty good. Their defense sucks, but you know, when you have hope.
Yeah, no, that's what happens.
It is.
Is you kind of end up it's amazing when it's like you actually have hope again. You're like, oh my gosh.
I know.
And he's good.
He's got 7 touchdowns to 1 turnover. It was a rookie. That's crazy. Yeah. Stephen A. Smith says he should be in early MVP discussions, which honestly may not be the craziest thing he's ever said. So,
I mean, wasn't it sort of the same thing last year?
With,
I think, who was it? Was there a rookie that they thought should have been the MVP?
I don't remember.
Probably not.
Now I need to know who were the rookie quarterbacks last year. Bryce Young. Oh, CJ Stroud. He would have been
there. You go.
That was
that's what it was.
Yeah, CJ Stroud. He's awesome. Plus CJ.
Again, the number 2 pick.
Yeah, number 2 pick.
That's his better pick to have, huh?
It seems like it. The number 1 pick.
Although I guess that makes sense because it's like you don't necessarily have to worry about it. Your choice is already made, I guess.
That's true. You say, hey, these are the top 2. We'll just take the one they don't.
We'll take the one they don't want.
Seems like it's kind of working out.
Because, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like, I remember hearing, like, it's like, oh, some people did have Jaden above Caleb. And the same thing where it's like, oh, people really like CJ over Bryce.
That's true. And at this, I don't know about the Jaden over Caleb thing, but the CJ Stroud over Bryce was definitely the right call.
It seems warranted.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially when it's like, oh, they're drafted as a quarterback.
I wonder if it's because it's probably just because the team that's number 1 overall just overanalyzes everything. So they find,
I think because
they
you know what it is?
They nitpick too much.
It's not. I don't even think it's necessarily a nitpick. You know what I think it honestly is?
What?
You know, one of those things, because, okay, like, this is just because my team was in the situation where it was RG3 versus Andrew Luck, right?
Yes. And
then there were sides where it's like, everyone's like, Andrew Luck's a can't miss prospect.
Right.
You don't.
Which they were right.
When you're gifted that, you don't take it. But there were some people who said, no, you need RG3's the one you want. He's the one who's gonna kind of he's better than Andrew Luck. He's more mobile.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the whole situation where it was like, oh, what does Indy do? And it was like, well, they were in a different situation where it's like, okay, we draft. Because hypothetically, they could have drafted RG3 and been like, we don't need the completed projects. We can just bring back Manning.
That's true. Yep.
And the same thing could have been Luck. Is like, if they drafted Luck, and they said, hey, he might need a year. We'll just run Manning out there for another year. Like, right. They could have done that.
Yeah. I'm thankful they didn't. It worked out for me.
No, I know it worked out for you, but I'm saying, like, usually you're not in that situation where it's like you kind of have, like, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, it's very rare for teams to be in a situation where you have the 1 or 2 pick, where you can get a can't miss quarterback prospect, and you also have a not even Hall of Fame, but like a really good veteran quarterback. I mean, in Peyton Manning's case, it was a Hall of Fame quarterback, but yeah, it's a very unique situation.
Like, hypothetically, if they wanted to do that, they easily could have been like, hey, and I don't think either of them would have been like an ego issue, or if they said, hey, Luck's gonna take over at some point, we need you to train him, and I don't think Peyton would have been like, no, I'm not gonna train him, fuck him.
I don't know. He might have.
Because you know what I want.
I don't know if he really was into Brock Osweiler behind him in Denver.
But you know, okay. But here's the. I'm not. I mean, one, Andrew Luck compared to Brock Osweiler.
I understand, but it's the sentiment of having a guy behind you. Aaron Rodgers hates it too.
But is it? But I'm wondering, is it different? Is it a different scenario when it's like, you know what that kid, like, you kind of know, like, oh, he's on your IQ level? Or it's like there's not that gap, because I wonder if there's a difference between, like, okay, like, if
Andrew Luck is definitely closer to Peyton Manning than,
or it's like those two guys, 100%. like those two guys can talk incredibly nerdy, and they can, like, they'll speak their own language and understand it. That's sort of my point, is where I think guys get annoyed is when it's like Brock Osweiler, Peyton Manning, because if Peyton Manning's trying to tutor this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to say, "Oh, you got to look, you got Omaha, go something,"
Omaha,
and to him,
yeah.
he's just like, "What the hell are you talking about?" But if you get someone who understands what he's trying to get at, it's like, "Oh, you do this, and if it's not there, you can just do that." Like,
so it's
when you have.
It's the same thing we talk about
basketball.
I was about to say, yeah, it's the same thing we talk about with
you
Jokic and LeBron. They see the game in a different way, and it frustrates them when other people
when it's
don't.
like when you have someone who can understand what you're trying to say and try to convey. I think that makes the student master relationship a little better because you understand what he's trying to say, and you can kind of throw it back and be like, "Oh, you're saying." Right. This, and this, because I think that's the most frustrating thing is like if you are trying to be like the good teammate, and why most of them hate it is because they think these kids don't want to learn. They think they're hot shit, but when you get a guy who's humble and understands the offense and can kind of see it the way you're seeing it, I don't think you've ever had that in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so.
I can't think of an instance. Because
maybe Steve Young, Joe Montana.
Maybe. I guess hypothetically, looking back on it, you could probably say Kirk Cousins, RG3, Shanahan probably should have been the best offensive room in the league, and it wasn't. Hypothetically, in terms of like offensive IQ,
maybe. I don't know. That one's tough because that one was a lot of self-sabotage by a lot of people in that organization because it was a clusterfuck. So that one's just a weird because like there's a reason why they drafted RG3 and then like 4 rounds later drafted another quarterback when you just drafted number 2 overall pick. They
had a lot of like I remember there in that same interview where it was talking about Shanahan with Brock Purdy. It was a lot of the same thing with like Shanahan and RG3, where I guess RG3's dad was like upset that they weren't running as much, and he was like, on those play actions, if he sees it, he can run. Right. We're not telling him. He's like, the offense isn't one of those offenses where it's like, oh, if it's on a play action, you have to run it. It's more, from what I gather from what Shanahan's offense is, it's more like an option on a play action.
Yeah,
100%. The idea is like it should be open enough to like where there's a possibility of a pocket, and if you see the pocket, take the pocket.
Right.
Like the whole idea of his offense, especially with the Niners, it's a lot of you're taking what you're given. You're not trying to be over aggressive. You're just trying to
just get something.
It's the whole thing of like the best way to move the boulder is you just push it.
Yep.
And eventually it's gonna go. Like you're not trying to like Hail Mary. You're just trying to be like, hey, 3 yards. Guess what? 3 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards.
3rd and 2, handoff. Definitely reasonable to get. Yep.
Easy handoff. Hey, we're good. That's all. That's what you're trying to do. It's like, I mean, ideally, you want to you don't want to hit 3rd down, but the idea is like you put 3rd manageable, where it's like, okay, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. Okay, we got this.
Yep. So yeah. All right.
Okay.
I don't think
the Saint Chiefs do anything for you, or Saints Chiefs or Cowboys Steelers do anything for you.
I mean, Cowboys Steelers is funny to me just because I love to see when Cowboys fans lose it. So there's that. Because I think the Steelers end up destroying Dallas. Their defense is too good.
Is Mr. Unlimited ever going to play again?
No, I think I don't know why you would even I don't know why you would do that if you're Pittsburgh, because they're winning with Justin Fields, who, while he's not the perfect quarterback, he seems to be okay-ish, like okay enough, and he at least can give you some explosive plays. So yeah, I mean, I think that game will be fine. I think Dallas gets blown out. New Orleans, Kansas City, I think might just suck because Kansas City's offense is basically in the hospital. So that's, I don't know if Kansas City's really all that good this year, just because their offense isn't good. Like I know they're 4-0, but they've lost a lot of weapons. So I'm worried a bit. Like, and their schedule hasn't been great so far. The Ravens the Ravens kind of figured things out the first couple weeks. Bengals, who have been surprisingly bad. Falcons, who haven't been great. Chargers haven't been great. Like this, I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints walk out of Arrowhead with a pretty decent win there. So,
especially with no Rashee Rice.
Yeah, no Rashee Rice, no Pacheco. Travis Kelce is chilling until the playoffs. So
yeah, and you're going to Look, I think they're saying Kareem Hunt's probably going to be the starter there, which that's probably a better. That's more of like an athletic thing.
Yeah,
so we'll see what happens.
Had 14 carries last week, so it's fine, but it's not the Kareem Hunt of like 4 or 5 years ago.
It's not the Kareem Hunt of OG when he was originally in KC.
Yeah, he was awesome.
It's more of a Kareem Hunt that's like kind of like the thunder, like the lightning to someone's thunder, which it might work.
Yep.
Where it's like with Panay, with what's his face?
P. Ryan. Samaj P. Ryan. He's there.
Where you got
third down back,
kinda, yeah. P. Ryan's your third down back. You sort of just let Kareem Hunt kind of get like be explosive.
Mm-hmm. And Carson Steele, dude, we can't forget about him. Him and his alligator, dude.
And the white cornerbacks are back. I mean, we're
hey, the Broncos got one. Riley Moss, let's go. White corners are making a comeback.
What a name, Riley Moss.
Yeah, he's not bad. He had a lot of really stupid penalties against the Jets. I'm not sure I'm a fan, but hey, it was 1 week.
But I mean, I guess that's that, huh?
Yep. All right.
Well, that's gonna put a bow over the.
I think that's it for us.
The episode 3.5. We will be back. Catch you this live here, same channels on Saturday, around the same-ish time. Usually, we might take a little bit more on the back end, but hey, we'll be back covering whatever else happens, sort of more broader stuff.
Yeah, because I don't think any of our teams play on Saturday, do they? I know the Buffs don't.
I know.
Do. Oh, yours do. Okay. BYU and the Buffs don't. So
USC plays at 4:30, but it's against Minnesota, and I think we're kind of
still not very good. Yeah, so
I think we're kind of still in that weird spot with the Big Ten Network where we don't have it out here yet, so it's not. So I'll probably have to watch it on my phone.
Cool.
I think they had. Well, they did this weird thing where they're like, "Oh, it'll be on the Fox app," and I'm like, "Oh, all right, whatever."
I see.
So we still have it. It's just the gun of a go back.
They're
the only one who plays. They're the ones who play on Saturday. Everyone else is over.
Cool. All right. Well,
we'll probably talk baseball playoffs. I think.
Yeah, baseball playoffs. I'll read and figure out who's even in it. All right. Bye, everybody who watched.